If you've used an Apple Watch over the past 8 years, you'll know that it isn't perfect, but a month ago, Apple released this. This is the larger, more durable Apple Watch Ultra, and it's twice as bright as the standard Apple Watch. It has double the water resistance, and it has double the battery life. It even has a scroll wheel on the side here that's twice the size. But the Apple Watch Ultra also has double the weight and double the price tag size. So in this review, we'll try to answer that simple question. Is it worth it? Now the Apple Watch Ultra is a larger 49mm watch with a titanium case, an extremely bright 2000 nit Retina display with a 410 by 502 pixel resolution, and it has a flat sapphire front crystal. On its own, the watch weighs about 61 or 62 grams, and as you'll see in this review, I'm actually using that black trail loop watch band. And with this very, very light watch strap, the total weight of the watch is about 70 grams. But when you actually go through the purchasing process, you'll have 3 different strap options to choose from. The Alpine Loop, which is designed for outdoor hiking type activities. The Trail Loop, which is, light and stretchy. It's designed for runners and endurance athletes. And then there's the Ocean Band, which is designed for extreme water sports. And although, I do think I'll make a separate video talking about all of these different strap options and what strap might work for, swimming versus biking or running, I'll just briefly say that I actually have been swimming with the Trail Loop over the past 3 weeks or so without any issues. The band does hold on to a little bit of moisture, but I haven't lost it in the water or anything crazy like that. And I've done a bit of open water swimming with this strap on the Apple Watch Ultra, where, the consequences of it falling off would be losing the watch to the bottom of the lake forever. So I will just quickly say that if you are an open water swimmer, or even if swimming is kind of your primary activity, it is probably worth sticking with that Ocean Band, just because, one, it does have a more secure clasping mechanism, and 2, it's not gonna stay wet after you've swam with it. All of that being said, I'm definitely happy that I picked the lightweight Trail Loop, and I think a lot of you guys are gonna be happy if this is the one that you choose as your option. And the watch band selection doesn't have an effect on the price. The Apple Watch Ultra costs $799. No matter what you choose, there's no cellular option or non-cellular option. All of the Apple Watch Ultras are cellular compatible, and there's no aluminum versus titanium option because all of the Apple Watch Ultras have this rugged titanium case. And the glass across the top is a sapphire, which should also be more durable. And although I've only had this watch for 3 weeks, I don't see any sort of scratches or any sort of nicks in the glass display so far. And the touchscreen display is that extremely bright 2000 AMOLED Retina display. It's twice the brightness of the normal Apple Watch. In fact, it's clearly the brightest display that I've ever tested on this channel. It actually works fine, outdoors, in direct sunlight, and when comparing it with other watches on the market, it really is dramatically sharper and brighter in a lot of different lighting scenarios. Now the Apple Watch Ultra also has dual speakers, again, double that of a standard Apple Watch. And the new speaker system is about 40% louder than the Series 6, 7, and 8. And one reason to have those louder speakers is for a new Sirens safety feature on the Apple Watch Ultra. And the idea behind it is just that if you do happen to be out hiking in the woods and you get hurt, that you can actually set off this siren just by holding down this action button and sliding the siren button. And it just kind of goes through this repeated noise pattern that can actually be heard at a pretty good distance. Right now I'm 0.2 miles away from the actual watch, and I was just gonna walk a little bit further and see if you could maybe hear it at 100 meters or even at the claimed 180 meter mark. Okay, we're at about 100 meters away from the Apple Watch that I just hung on a tree. And I don't know how sensitive this microphone is, but I can clearly hear it here in the woods. It's basically just down the trail, just a little bit, 100 meters from here. We're about 150 meters away from the Apple Watch Ultra. I'm guessing that you guys can't hear it, but I can barely hear it. There's also an airplane in the distance. But you can definitely hear that siren pattern. And it basically repeats between two different patterns. They're both annoying, and they should prompt you to at least look for whatever's making that noise to try to stop it. And the new Apple Watch Ultra can even connect to 2 satellite systems simultaneously instead of just the one like you would get with a normal Apple Watch. The Apple Watch Ultra uses that dual frequency GPS chip that'll allow it to connect to both the L1 and the L5 GPS satellite systems at the same time for very, very accurate GPS. And I'll probably dig into, those GPS accuracy comparisons for swimming and biking and running, specifically in videos talking about those sports. But real quickly, I do want to let you guys know that I am seeing some, very accurate GPS data when it comes to both running and biking. And then for open water swimming, I would say the accuracy is a little bit more mixed. I would say that it wasn't as good as some of the other watches that I've tested on this channel, but it's usable. It's totally usable. Now the Apple Watch Ultra also has about twice the battery life of a typical Apple Watch, so you can expect about 36 hours of battery life when you're using this with its very basic always-on settings and your typical everyday scenarios. I actually took this watch without a charger on a 2-day trip when I first got it, when I first broke it open. And unfortunately, it didn't look like it was gonna make it all the way through those 2 days without a charge. So I did switch it to its low power mode pretty early on in the trip, so I knew that it would make it through. And low power mode does turn off things like that always on display. It'll actually limit the cellular and Wi-Fi connections, and it'll even delay notifications just a little bit. It'll turn off that background heart rate measurements, so that's including things like heart rate notifications for abnormally low or abnormally high heart rates, and blood oxygen saturation notifications will also be turned off. In the basic low power mode, it'll also extend your GPS battery life from somewhere along the lines of 12 hours all the way up to something like 17 hours. And so I think that this is probably the mode that I would suggest if you're thinking about using something like the Apple Watch Ultra for a full Ironman distance triathlon. But there's also something new called the low power mode with reduced accuracy, which will actually reduce GPS sampling from once per second, which is kind of normal, all the way out to 2 minutes. And it'll take the GPS battery all the way up to about 60 hours, which it's gonna sound pretty amazing, but keep in mind that you're losing a lot of GPS accuracy with that. And oddly, at least for now at the timing of this recording, they are limiting that battery saver mode to running, walking, and hiking, and it doesn't allow for splits or segments. And again, I'm not sure why this isn't available for a sport like cycling or multi-sport. I have to imagine that Apple will update that via software at some point. And I bet that you are guessing that the Ultra has twice as many microphones, but you'd be wrong. It turns out that there's actually 3 microphones instead of 1.
And it uses this microphone array to distinguish between ambient noise and wind noise. And this is typically what you might hear when someone's talking in kind of an echoey environment that's not extremely quiet. There's kind of a dryer going in the background.
There's also a new action button on the Apple Watch Ultra, and you can set this to do a variety of things like quickly start a stopwatch, turn on a flashlight, set waypoints in the Compass app. You can actually set it to go into dive mode. The whole Apple Watch itself can work as a dive computer. And I will say that, that action button, it is kind of easy to trigger just, as you move your wrist kind of throughout the day. But it's kind of annoying for me to trigger a GPS workout. So, after a few days of having it set to workout, I did switch it over to the stopwatch functionality. I coach like a high school cross country team. So the stopwatch app is, it's a tool that I actually use quite frequently. Now, if you have had an Apple Watch in the past, I do think that you're gonna love this device, as long as you're okay with the large size of this device. You could say something like, your opinion of this device will largely depend on the size. I don't know, that's a bad pun. As I mentioned before, she's a big watch, she's a thick watch. A small Series 6 or 7 or 8 might weigh in at something like 32 grams, whereas the Apple Watch Ultra weighs nearly 62 grams. Now, a lot of weight on these watches is gonna come from the watch band itself, so that ocean band is going to weigh significantly more than something lighter like the Trail Loop band. Now, the Apple Watch Ultra is also going to sit up higher on your wrist. And in my opinion, that's kind of what makes these watches feel a bit bigger, a bit more bulky. The Apple Watch Ultra is about 14.4 millimeters thick, again, compared to the Apple Watch 6, 7, and 8, which is about 10.7 millimeters thick. So here's what the Apple Watch Ultra looks like on my outrageously thin and tiny, but still very manly 165 millimeter wrists. And again, here's what the smaller 41 millimeter Apple Watch Series 7 looks like on my wrist for reference. So I really do think it's going to come down to the size of the watch, and if you like the look of the watch, for a lot of existing Apple Watch users. But a ton of buyers aren't going to be previous Apple Watch owners. About 70 to 75% of people buying Apple Watches today are new to the entire platform. So, for example, me personally, I'm constantly comparing watches to, Garmin, Polar, Coros, and other watch manufacturers. So, if you guys are like me, it's gonna be critical for, us to know that the Apple Watch Ultra isn't really designed for, ultra running. They're very different watches here. The Apple Watch Ultra, the screen, the AMOLED 2000 nit bright display, it really does, it makes pretty much any other watch on the market look like it's not even turned on. So, if you're comparing it to something like the Garmin Enduro 2, which is kind of like Garmin's Phoenix, but it's actually targeted at ultra runners, battery life is going to be a glaring issue here. Instead of 30 plus hours of battery life, you're going to be getting something like 30 plus days of battery life. But ultimately, I do think that you're going to love the smartphone features of this watch. It is possible that you'll be a bit underwhelmed by battery life if you are coming from a different platform. And again, we can save some of that kind of comparison stuff like a Garmin versus Apple Watch Ultra for another specific video kind of discussing the differences between those things. But coming up very soon, I will be posting specific videos about using the Apple Watch Ultra for swimming, biking, and then running. And I really do hope that you guys will consider joining me.